Just when you thought they'd finally done something about how misleading clean beauty claims are, nothing happens. Nothing happens. Finally, we might see an end to these Sephora kids and their damaged skin. Sephora can't quite seem to break the Korean market, and influencers on TikTok are taking it one step too far for me today, and let's talk about that. There's this new strain of influencer that you see on TikTok, and it's called an e-commerce influencer. And these are influencers who have taken it upon themselves to sell product, promote product, and make a very tiny amount of commission over on TikTok Shop. And this isn't an influencer who just happens to link one of their favorite products because it's available on TikTok Shop. This is somebody whose every single post is a link to a product. You know, the one, I bought this pair of leggings, you won't believe how cheap they are. I bought this like dog feeder bowl that has like a fucking alarm clock on it, you won't believe how cheap it was. All that kind of stuff. And you know what? I like it. I think it's great for people who want to earn a living at home, become their own different type of influencer, and make a commission whilst doing it. The problem with these things is the commission is so tiny because the products are so cheap as well. So what you find is that these influencers are constantly pushing out new product or constantly posting about this product, because from £1 they make like 2p commission. It's not great. And yeah, that leads to them pushing for more and more and more. And I don't know about you, but TikTok nowadays just seems to be people shouting at me to buy stuff that they found on TikTok Shop. Now, obviously we know the vast majority of these influencers are probably lying about just how much they really like the product in order to make a small bit of commission. It's kind of like the secret affiliate link, but on crack. Do you know what I mean? Like they're just selling any old shit. But whilst in bed browsing on TikTok the other night, I came across this TikTok user, this e-commerce influencer, who is the perfect example of making up shit in order to sell a product. Watch this video here.
If you want people to accuse you of getting Botox done and actually looking 20 years younger than your actual age, you have to start taking collagen. One of my coworkers who's 75 years old, she looks like she's in her 40s, guys, takes this collagen every single day. So one of my coworkers, she's like in her late 60s, looks like she's in her 20s. Also, I asked her, like, what are you doing? Because your skin is so flawless. Her secret is collagen. This is the one that she said a bunch of celebrities actually take. I got ripped off and I got it for £60, but on the TikTok Shop in this link, you can only get it for like £25. This is gonna replace your Botox. That's what this esthetician on TikTok said. She's in her mid-50s, but honestly could pass by being in her early 30s. People were literally mistaking this woman for being 45 when she was 65. And it's because she was taking this exact collagen. Did you guys see that lady that recently turned 70? And she started crying because she said that she heard from an esthetician that if she takes collagen every single day, it will get rid of all those fine lines and wrinkles. So she started taking collagen, and literally after a couple of months of taking it, all of her wrinkles went away. And this is the specific brand that she used. So my friend's mum, she's in her late 80s now, but generally looks like she could be in her mid-60s. And this one was the one that she said is the strongest. Did you guys see that lady that was crying? Because she's in her 60s, right? But people kept mistaking her for being in her early 40s. She said that she's been taking this hydrolyzed collagen powder from WellGuard for like basically so many years.
Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this creator had about 4 or 5 different stories, probably more now, about women of different age groups using this exact same collagen. And an esthetician that she knew, 2 women of different age groups who were crying on the internet because they looked old. I don't really get the story, but it's very obvious that she is making up stories here in order to sell this collagen that she's probably only just started using. And people in her comments are noticing this. They're saying like, where's these videos? Where's this story? Show us this woman. Let's see some before and afters. We have one issue of influencers, beauty influencers, trying to sell you shit they've never used before, pretending they love it, you know, acting shocked on TikTok because a lip gloss glosses their lips, or influencers taking brand deals from brands they don't really like. But it's another thing to just make up shit in order to sell a product. But now we have these e-commerce influencers literally making up stuff. And she isn't the first and only example I have of this type of thing. But this is a great representation of what a lot of people are saying, that TikTok now just feels like adverts, advert after advert after advert. And these aren't even people who are doing sponsored jobs. They bought a product themselves so that they can advertise it constantly over and over and over. It's so frustrating. It's also misleading. It's also constant, a barrage of TikTok shop stuff. And now we have e-commerce influencers literally making up shit. I just thought that was interesting. Speaking of making up shit, let's talk about clean beauty. Ugh. And the lawsuit against Sephora's Clean at Sephora basically being thrown out of court. If you're like me, then you've been waiting for someone to do something, anything about clean beauty claims, how misleading they are, the misinformation, the fear to sell. And Sephora are kind of at the forefront of that. They are, to me, probably the biggest, most recognized retailer that use this clean beauty kind of slogan with their own Clean at Sephora labeling system, which they launched back in June of 2018, really when clean beauty was at the height of its bullshit. Cindy Daly, who at the time was Sephora's senior director of skincare merchandising, I don't know if she still is, she said at the time that more and more clients are going into Sephora stores looking for beauty brands that are free of certain ingredients that they may be looking to avoid. And Clean at Sephora is their response to a consumer demand for more transparency and improved navigation. The Clean at Sephora site actually says all their Clean at Sephora products being free from sulfates, SLS, SLES, parabens, formaldehyde, and formaldehyde-releasing agents, phthalates, mineral oil, retinol palmitate, oxybenzone, coal tar, hydroquinone, triclosan, and triclocarbon. Basically, every ingredient that an essential oil, MLM, and the Daily Mail are telling you are going to give you cancer, are going to disrupt your hormones, are going to make your hair fall out because one study once said it somewhere that they misinterpreted and wanted a headline. Now, this did eventually result in a lawsuit, with this lawsuit against Sephora's Clean at Sephora, basically saying that the clean labels were misleading. And most of the products that were labeled Clean at Sephora still included ingredients that were known irritants, known to cause allergies, were toxic chemicals. And overall, the lawsuit was complaining that Clean at Sephora's clean products didn't align with how the consumer understood what clean was, which is probably one of the main issues with the word clean in general, basically accusing Sephora of labeling their products falsely and misleading. Now, the lawsuit states that they feel consumers understand clean beauty to be basically the dictionary definition of what clean says: clean from impurities and any harmful additives. And this lawsuit even points out actually that a lot of the Clean at Sephora products have a substantial markup purely because they are labeled as clean and free from products. However, the case was dismissed by a Judge David Hurd of the US District Court in the Northern District of New York. And as much as I would have loved for this to be the start of banning clean claims, banning greenwashing, banning all this no toxics, nasties kind of conversation, I kind of do get why this was thrown out of court, as much as I don't like it. The first reason was that Sephora actually very clearly state what clean means to them, which is part of the problem, in my opinion. Too many brands have too many different definitions of what clean means, but Sephora very clearly state in the sense that they have an actual list of what ingredients their Clean at Sephora products are free from. And two, the main real reason is that clean has no legal definition. So any brand can use the term clean and explain what clean means to them, and there's not a lot anyone can really do about it. So Sephora weren't really going against any advertising standard laws here, any retail laws, because the word clean isn't lawed on. Now, there are people that actually monitor these clean claims. This is the National Advertising Division, the NAD of BB National Programs, and they basically are a group have the final say regarding any complaints about brands advertising. They don't seem to actually mind clean claims in general. Actually looks like they are fine for brands to use the term clean as long as they are not suggesting that other brands are selling dirty products or dangerous products, which kind of doesn't help because the suggestion that there are clean versus dirty brands is still there. Let's look at a very recent example. Actually, on March the 4th, the NAD took a look at the brand Biossance and their clean claims. They're a great brand. I do just wish they drop all the clean stuff. One claim Biossance made on their website was clean ingredients and clean formulas. We ban over 2,000 ingredients that are known to be toxic to you and the environment. The NAD were basically like, good for you, great for your brand, but you can't really say this, because let's look at this realistically. Out of those 2,000 ingredients, some of those ingredients aren't even used in cosmetics anyway. And that's what all these brands do. They're like, we don't use rocket fuel. No one uses rocket fuel in their cosmetics. So the NAD recommended modifying that claim, specifying banned ingredients typically used in cosmetics. That's going to filter it right down. And you know, they've been doing this for a long time, pretty much since clean claims arose, but I don't think it really helps. I feel like they're just pandering to a misled audience and a misled consumer base. And it's so interesting, whenever I do these clean beauty little chats, I always get the odd comment of people being like, well, you know, I would never use this ingredient just in case case, like why risk it? People should be able to use what they want. And of course, absolutely, of course, but why are you avoiding that ingredient? Why do you want to not use toxic chemicals? Is it because somebody told you it's dangerous? Is it because somebody told you it was going to give you cancer? Is it because somebody told them this all incorrectly in order to sell you their products? People go on about big pharma all the time. What about big clean? What about big natural? It's so much easier, I always say, to sell with fear than it is to sell with science. I do think if clean isn't banned, there needs to be a set legal definition that doesn't suggest that other products are harmful. And if a brand is going to use that term, they need to make it very clear that they know the science, that they know products aren't dangerous to use. This is just their brand ethos and the reason why they really want to be free of these products. They should be educating, not scaring, right? Ooh, Apothec bans the sale of anti-aging products to those under 15 years old. I didn't want to talk about Sephora Kids ever again. I think we are all tired of it, but I feel like this is some interesting and potentially good news. One of the standout comments from all the videos I've seen and the video I made about these Sephora Kids going into Sephora, Space NK, wherever, and buying products that just aren't suitable for them. Products with actives in, drunk elephant. The standout comments were that these kids shouldn't even be in Sephora. The workers should ban them from buying anything that they think isn't right for their skin. Security should stop them coming in, messing up the shop and buying products that are not suitable for the kids. You know, it could be potentially harmful for them. You wouldn't sell them alcohol or vapes. Well, it looks like a Swedish pharmacy chain called Apotek will be introducing age restrictions on skincare products containing actives and anti-aging ingredients such as AHAs, BHA, vitamin C, retinols, tranexamic acid, all these active ingredients that kids don't need to be using. Now, this will affect anybody under the age of 15 unless they are being accompanied by an adult. Anika Svedberg, chief pharmacist of Apotek, said using advanced skincare that, for example, aims to reduce wrinkles and get a more even skin tone is not something a child needs. In cases where a child has a skin disease, for example, atopic eczema, certain products can also contribute to worsening or reactivating symptoms. She also goes on to say that this age restriction actually does more than just banning kids from using skincare. It starts a conversation with children and parents about healthy skin routines based on needs and not ideals, which I think really is a key thing here. Monica Magnuson, the company's CEO, said, "We want to be ahead of the curve and take greater responsibility for not being involved in pushing unhealthy behaviors and ideals that have grown up among many young people." Ultimately, it's a shame that this has had to fall on shop owners, brands, the shop assistants working to look out for these kids. And yes, parents should be double checking what their kids are bringing home and what they're putting on their faces. It's solely, in my opinion, the parents' responsibility. Saying that, when I was 15, I'd get given my pocket money, I'd go and buy a load of shit and not show my parents. Not because it was bad, but you know, I'd buy stuff like spell books and Pokemon cards. I mean, it wasn't anything too serious. Times have changed. I definitely wasn't shopping for retinol, you know? A brand should come out with a for kids, almost like play set of skincare, where like the toner is just water and like everything else is just aloe vera and hyaluronic acid or something like that, you know, just so they can play pretend. Let's go back to Sephora again. We've gone from Sephora lawsuit to Sephora Kids. Now we're going to talk about how Sephora just aren't doing well in South Korea. Sephora announced recently that they are pulling out of the South Korean market. Now, it feels like they've only just launched here in the UK. It was a couple of years ago now, last year, I can't remember. But ultimately, they're going to open a third store. They announced recently that they're going to open one in Manchester, and it seems to be doing quite well here in the UK. I think with the rise of YouTube and the beauty influencer, people here in the UK wanted Sephora for such a long time. We actually had it before it closed down, like way back in the day, and now it's reopened. We wanted all those products that all the influencers were talking about, the products that only Americans can get first, you know, which isn't really a thing nowadays. Well, some brands. I worked with them on the launch and it was good fun. There was a really big buzz surrounding it. It's fair to say the launch here in the UK went well. However, it just hasn't gone well in South Korea at all. Sephora announced on their Sephora Korea page that they will be closing down their online app, their online store, and their physical stores as of May the 6th, 2024. That's less than 5 years since they entered the South Korean market. This doesn't really come as much of a surprise, really, as each year they were announcing a loss. I think COVID hit them really, really hard. The 14 stores that they announced they were going to open in South Korea never opened. They cannot replicate the huge success they've had in the US. Now, bear in mind that they had to compete with Olive Young, the #1 health and beauty store in South Korea with over 1,300 shops, I believe it is. I've been to Korea twice. I've been to Seoul twice. They are everywhere, literally opposite each other. Like sometimes you're like, do they need another one here? Apparently they do. And every time I went in, they were always busy. Olive Young have around 90% of the market share when it comes to health and beauty in South Korea, with CJ Olive Young reporting a 3.86 trillion won, that's $2.88 billion in revenue in 2023. Sephora could not compete with that at all. And Sephora, despite having a mix of really affordable skincare and makeup brands and higher end products, they did for some reason go into Korea touting themselves as a high-end luxury beauty retailer. First opening in the affluent area of Gangnam in Seoul, people just weren't into it. They weren't into it. With a Korean reporter saying that here in Korea, if we're gonna buy expensive skincare, we go into department stores. Compared to Olive Young, that honestly sells much better and affordable makeup and skincare amongst many other things that you want, you know, healthcare stuff, drinks, food, snacks, other things, all at much better price point with same day delivery in some areas. Sephora just didn't stand a chance, and we actually saw this with Boots as well. UK's beloved Boots. They had a very similar experience. They actually launched in Korea in 2017, and after just 1 year, they exited. And again, for some reason, Boots went in, Boots, where I get my toilet roll and my bum wipes, they went into the Korean market touting themselves as a premium health and beauty store. And not surprisingly, it just didn't go well. It just didn't go well. It reminds me of when Sephora opened here in the UK all those years ago. Again, it just didn't go well. Like, we had Boots. Boots was the biggest thing at the time, and makeup and skincare wasn't what it was today. People use the basics. They like L'Oreal, Maybelline, Clean and Clear, maybe Clinique, and that was kind of it, you know? But Sephora just kind of got in there at the wrong time. Olive Young has taken over, and rightfully so. I'll be honest, I much prefer Olive Young to Sephora. Let me know what you think about these stories down in the comments below. That felt a little bit short today, but it's okay. There'll be another ugly news sometime very, very soon. You can watch the whole When Beauty Turns Ugly playlist here, some general light entertainment here, and I'll see you over there.